Okay. And I will start recording. There we go. So just for the people who have come in, Dr. Yamina won't be able to join us this week, unfortunately. So it's just us. Feel free to ask any questions, or we can go over what we talk about this week too, inshallah, when she comes back. So I wanted to ask Sarah if you want to do a little summary, or I can if you're not available, of last week. Um,
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome back in our weekly study of angels and proving their existence. Maybe I'll just share a short summary, and maybe Noor, you can also share your short summary. What I've been able to sit with from last week is rationally, right? Nursi is guiding us to use our reasoning with empirical certainty, which is one of the words that he uses, that if you can confirm through one example, we talked about cause and effect, if you can negate with confirmation that the alleged cause itself cannot be a producer, then that necessarily means that there is an actor acting on the substance to deliver whatever it is that is being given through that substance. And so if we can confirm it one time, then we can confirm that the entire species must exist. And then Imam Nursi also talked about the Quran and the prophets and the saints all confirming the existence of them. So how could we struggle to accept it if it's already been witnessed and confirmed? And I'll pause there. That's what I have. And Noor, do you want to share?
Thank you, Sarah. So one of the things that I had written down was when we're trying to reflect on those everyday cause and effect scenarios, one thing that I can look at is what does it mean for, anything to happen in a specific and unique order. And I observe it, and I can either say that everything involved in that process is powerful and knowledgeable and willful on its own, and there are countless actors that are like this, or I can say they are at the command of an all-wise, all-powerful, all-knowing one. And so there's this sort of reception of divine command. And the question I should ask then is, what is receiving that command? So this is the question that is gonna take me to understand that Melekut realm. And then another thing that we talked about towards the end of our meeting was about how everything that's created is in sujud, right? And that's a sort of like symbolic submission, or it symbolizes submission of their creator. And so we were told to look at, for example, these two surahs, Surah 15 and 16. So I have these here, and if anyone has any reflections, we can also get those. So the last two of Surah Hijr is so exalt Allah with praise of your Lord, and be of those who prostrate to him, and worship your Lord until there comes to you the certainty. And then the next surah, Surah Nahl, starts with these two ayats. If Allah is coming, so be not impatient for it. Exalted is he and high above what they associate with him. He sends down the angels with the inspiration or revelation of his command, upon whom he wills of his servants, telling them, warn that there's no deity except me, so fear me. So one of the things that we were meant to kind of reflect about was, why are these verses coming one after the other? What are we supposed to understand about angels from the previous 3 verses? And see this sort of like submission aspect, revelation, inspiration of his command. So if you guys reflected on that and you want to share, now is a good time. If not, I will start reading the 4th fundamental point, inshallah.
Tasnia had a beautiful reflection on these ayats in our group. So, Tasnia, if you're available, she had a beautiful connection between the need to confirm angels are real. And if we can go back to those ayat in Surah An-Nahl, there's a connection between confirming the amr, the command, with tasbih. It's the angels are declaring his perfection and there's no shirk. So there's a connection between confirming angels that we're exploring through these verses to prevent shirk. So we can start with Tasnia, and then maybe inshallah others will feel comfortable sharing if they reflected on it.
Assalamu alaikum. So I was reflecting on these verses, and Sarah, you summarized it beautifully. And the example I think that just sort of led me back to these verses is with my son who is 6 years old. Like, we were looking at the body parts and like the organs and the function of the organs, and I was reading to him like, oh, like the brain is the command center of the body, and it directs the body what to do. Like, it tells the body what to do. And then as soon as I read it, I don't know, I paused, and then my son didn't think too much into it, and then later on, once I paused with it, like, it kind of felt like, wait a minute, is that really true? Like, the brain sends the signals, like the matter. And I circled back with my son and I was like, hey, like, let's take a look at like, there was like pictures of the brain, and I was like, take a look at this picture. Like, what do you see? And he's like, I see the brain. I'm like, yeah, like, doesn't it look like, it looks like, I was like, we were talking about like texture wise, like if you could touch it, what do you think it would feel like? And then he's like, oh, maybe like mushy. So those are some of the descriptive words that sort of came up. And then I asked him, I was like, do you think it's possible that something that's perhaps feels mushy and lumpy, and it's literally like this big mass of just mush, like a jello. Like, I was like, do you think that mush itself that we call the brain, and it is called the brain, that's the name for it, but do you think it could send, like, it has the ability itself to send signals. And he was like I saw him pausing, and then he was like, no, mama, like I was like, I was like, it's so complicated. Like, how can a mush thing, like, these are like him saying it, like I wasn't telling him all of this, but he's like, yeah, like it would, like, it's like I have so many thoughts, and I have, all these things that I'm doing with my body. He's like, yeah, it doesn't make sense that this mush, like, subhanallah, like Allah, gave him that answer. Like, it doesn't make sense that this brain could do it on its own. And then I was like, yes, but it's something is doing it, because it's an observation that we're making, right? That something, in the body is causing you to, like, say, get up, move your arms and legs, blink, even talk to me. So, I was like, who could that be? And he was like, Allah. I was like, yeah, but guess what? There's some other things that Allah created. And he's like, what, mama, what? And then I was like, angels. And then his whole little being was like, like, it was just like, wow, really? I was like, yeah. I was like, every single thing that's created has an angel that's being commanded by Allah. Like, angels don't have the ability to not listen to him. So, um, angels are directing every single thing, like every single particle. So it just brought me back to these two ayahs of, like, um, like, and then Dr. Yamina towards the end of last class emphasizing that, like, I remember in the beginning when we asked the questions, like, why should we care about angels? Like, why is it just not enough that I know that a pillar of Iman is angels? And this is the reason, it's a pillar, and we learn it in our Sunday school, just sort of robotically. But she said it's like, and she's like, if we can't truly confirm, rationally, like, their presence, then what we end up is just attributing, like, shirky, um like, we attribute the matter, right, having agency. And I'm grateful that, alhamdulillah, like, just being able to make that connection. And it just made me further think that, even when we sleep, it's a mini death. Like, we say that our ruh, we believe it exits the body, but the body is still being made to work. And so, again, like, I asked myself the question, like, wow, subhanallah, like, who is making this body work so effortlessly? So, um that's all.
That is such a beautiful connection. Thank you for sharing that, Tasnia, and welcome to everyone who just joined. We are just reviewing our last week's connection to angels, and how, if we can confirm that matter itself in any single instance cannot be the thing that's doing something for me, then that necessarily means that there is something else that is working, acting along with, through the substance to give me whatever it is. If it's water, like this feeling of satisfaction or comfort or satiation, we assume that it must be through the hydrogen and the oxygen itself, and that knows where to go and how to work. And so it's the water itself doing it. And water is a big example that Dr. Yamina often uses, because if we can sort of have a breakthrough with water, then we can really break through how we associate power to other things. So we were just reviewing these verses, as ways to make a connection. And did anybody else have reflections they wanted to share on these verses? I'll just say 16:2 is very, so because we have a good sister friend of mine, Kristen, welcome. 16:1 says, the Arabic word is amr. Anna amrullah, the command of God, ata amrullah, fala tastajilun. So this command of God is already at work. So don't be so impatient. And what does it mean, like, so impatient? Don't be in such a rush that you got to see it at a certain time. Like, everything is working and you just don't see. You think that we don't see the unseen actors. And a good reminder before we even open up Quran or try to engage with the speech of the Creator, as this, the Quran says itself to be, we have to first remember that, why am I even opening this? Like, why do I even need this? Do I feel a need for this? Do we feel impatient? Is it true that sometimes I look at the happenings that are happening and it's hard for me to confirm, a perfect wisdom or a perfect plan, or at work? Do we find ourselves feeling impatient with the happenings unfolding in our lives? This says, Ata amrullah. The command of God is already unfolding. So don't be hasty. So whoever's speaking knows that I'm made hasty, impatient. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. The unfoldings will unfold perfectly without a flaw, beyond your imagination, and beyond you associating power, associating any action with anything else other than the Creator. So the word amr is sort of like the focus here, because Dr. Yamina shared in our very first class another verse which said that the angels are the ones يَفْعَلُونَ مَا يُؤْمَرُونَ. They are the ones carrying out the action of amr, of all command. And there is nothing that is unfolding here or taking place here. There is nothing that we interact with except it's the way it's made, meaning it's the way it was commanded to be. Meaning, angels are the only ones carrying out his command. The second verse, يُنَزِّلُ الْمَلَائِكَةَ بِالرُّوحِ. He sends down the angels with the inspiration, in this translation, with the ruh, from his command, on who he wills, from his worshippers. And andiru, conveying to them that there is no one, and this is the connection. There is nothing, la ilaha illa ana. There is nothing that can be doing anything that you are interacting with except me, first person, illa ana. Fattaquni. So be conscious of me. It's beautiful. I'm going to pause there if anybody wants to share anything.
The thing that becomes clear is there are everything that we intend to do becomes our dua for it to happen. So that mushy brain,
Can you
when
also
it
translate it?
intends,
Sorry,
say it
Khalia,
again.
you translate dua so that others who don't speak
Yeah.
Arabic.
Yes. So anything that we want to do, like I want to speak now, I want to press the unmute button with my finger, becomes my prayer. And when this prayer is accepted by my Lord, then my Lord ordains for the angels to execute this prayer and make it happen. My prayer to get my finger to move to the screen and press the unmute. I sent a prayer. The prayer was accepted by my Lord. My Lord sends an amr, a command to the angels to make this happen. And if I could see everything that I'm doing as a prayer that is accepted, that led to an amr, led to this order by my Lord to the angels to execute it, then there will be endless points of reference that every prayer I made has been accepted and an order has came and angels have executed it. And if I live in that way, then I would then be able to have a different prayer that is a prayer for something to change, like to make this happen, or something that happened to unhappen, or someone sick to heal, or. And when that is late, then I would realize it happens. Like if I could see everything else with angels being ordered to make it happen, then I would see that it is not the right time yet for it to happen. For if it was, it would have happened. So I guess this is where the training is needed, to see that angels are part of our every breath, even the things that I did not pray for, like, breathing while asleep. I did not pray that a breath comes in, but yet angels are employed and my breath comes in and my breath goes out. So I'm always surrounded by them. They're always carrying out the order of my Rabb, of my Lord. And even when I do something, it's not me doing it. There's a beautiful verse in the Quran that says, وَمَا رَمَيْتَ إِذْ رَمَيْتَ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ رَمَى. And when you aim for something and get at it, it's not you that aim and get at it, but it's your Lord who aims and gets at it. So I guess once we live in that, then we will be in a state where we do not need to hasten things, because we would believe that things will happen in the right time.
I love the connection. Thank you, Alia, because there's a connection between not being in a haste, and then the last word of the second verse is, so be conscious of me. I'm going to read Shahrani family, Inaba's comment. Assalamu alaikum, Inaba. And then we have two hands raised, inshallah. Thank you, Alia, for sharing. Inaba shares, very telling that the verb is indicating that the command is already happening. So it seems that we are invited to witness angels in the present moment if we concentrate and purify our perception. Sister Amina Stevens, a good friend of ours, always reminds us that the slower we go, the faster we get there. Thank you, Inaba. Ziba?
Yeah, actually, I was saying the same thing, like Ata Amrullah, Fala Tastajilun, and which I think Sri Abhinav always stresses. about is like Allah's order is already there. Amr is there. Stay with it. Don't rush. Don't rush to conclusions. Don't rush to defining and giving it a name. Just stay with it. Like our exercise, which was given, just boiling water. Like stay with that. Does it speak to you? And once that starts speaking to you, then automatically you will be in sujud. That will be your condition. Once it starts speaking to you, then it's like in Surah Sajda, Allah says, إنما يؤمنون بآياتنا الذي إذا ذكروا بها خروا سجدا وسبحوا بحمد ربهم وهم لا يستكبرون. Allah says that whenever they are conveyed to them, my ayat, my signs, when they become evident to them, once you stay with your interaction with things around you, with his signs, then and once it opens onto you, Zukkira bihi, it's a passive thing. You can't do it, you can't open it. It's been opened onto you once you are open to interacting and receiving it. And once it unfolds to you, it's opened upon you, then that's the state of your heart, which you will be in sujud, you will be in prostration. Once you get that interaction, it's that wow moment, where you say, oh, how can it make me feel like this? Does it have that power to make me feel like, is this matter? Like I make butter chicken, and every time when I taste it, then like it's a moment of frustration for me, because if I taste turmeric separately, if I taste cream separately, if I taste all ingredients don't make any sense to me, they don't appeal to me. But what happens, like what Amr is acting in that process, that as soon as it reaches the perfect taste and I get the amazing, my taste buds are stimulated, and the smell, it becomes so appealing and all. So there's so much of going on during this interaction. Just stay with that. Don't rush. Don't come to conclusions. Oh, what's happening and why is it happening? Stay with that. Enjoy it, and let it speak to you till your heart comes to a yaqeen. Hatta yati atal yaqeen. So I think for me, these ayahs spoke that stay with it, don't rush, it will unfold on you. And once it unfolds, you will find yourself in sujood. And I think Surah Hijr also says the same thing. Subhan Amma.
Yes, can you go back?
Fasabbih bihamdi rabbika kun minas sajidin. The Surah Hijr, second last ayah. So once you start seeing these, then with your praise, you will be glorifying your Rabb once it opens onto you. And then you will become amongst the sajidin, among the one who prostrate. Wakum minas sajidin. It's a natural happening. You won't have control over you to be in prostration. That's an instant, I think, reaction to unfolding that Allah bestows on us.
I love that. Let me just reiterate this connection. Jazakillah kulla khair ziba, mashallah. Alhamdulillah. So these 4 verses, it's the last 2 of chapter 15 and the first 2 of chapter 16, which were the homework from last week. Ziba shared a beautiful reflection that says the first verse of 16, you could keep this one up though, Noor. The first verse of 16 is telling us when you stay with the happenings, the amr, when you just reflect there, you take one thing and reflect on it. How is it that this thing is like this? Anything. Is it doing it by itself? And you just not be hasty. فَلَا تَسْتَعْجِلُونَ. Don't be in a rush to leave that moment. Stay, like Inaba and Ziba were saying, very still and present with one thing, and to slow down. Thank you for that reminder, Inaba. Then if you are sincere in that reflection, you will hear something communicate to you. You will hear a message, feel some awe, and that is the act or the consequence of experiencing the angelic presence, because the angelic presence is said in the Quran to be those who fasabbih, yusabbihun. They're telling you this is made perfectly. This is made perfectly. So the trees are saying, this, I'm made perfectly. The water, the child, the smile, the this, everything is saying, the one that made me makes me so perfect. Perfect is the one that made me. Yusabbih. And praising, bihamd, and praising the one who made it that way. And then when you hear that, it puts you in such a state of awe. And that state is one that is likened to prostration, where you admit, I and nothing else has any ability. We witness truly, subhana, yeah, perfect is the one who makes it this way. Thank you for that, Ziba. Thank you for that connection. Please, guys, feel free to share questions or comments. I see Tesnia's hand as well.
Assalamualaikum again. I think both Alia and Ziba touched upon this. Jazakallah khair, and I wanted to sort of re-emphasize this again. The first two verses of Surah An-Nahl, it talks about Allah sending down his angels with revelation. And what's coming to me is the more we truly confirm that part of that ayah, that part of that verse, the more we can be at ease. I know the past couple of years, a lot of sister friends and I, we've been talking about this concept of seeking ease in our lives. And I know Dr. Yamina, one of, the names that she calls upon from Allah's attributes is like the one who gives ease, al-muyassir. And I think it's just so beautiful when we truly, truly can feel that there are literally armies of angels right now, armies of spirit beings right now, in my breath and everything around me. Like, it's, for me, what's coming to me is that this aspect of being a doer, like I'm the one who needs to do this. I'm, especially like given right now our current situation, I know there's, a lot of stress and fatigue that's happening, as well as guilt for not doing enough. And I pause with that because that is a mistaken belief, because who is it that's truly doing, right? Like, is it me, Tasnia, this body that's doing it? Or is it being done onto? So just a simple example from today is, so, I try to make it a point to send an email to, our senators and Congress people for in regards to what's happening in Palestine. And today there was a lot of things that required my attention, and time sort of slipped by. And again, I was starting to feel that sense of like guilt and heaviness, like really, like I can't even, sit down and send my 5-minute email. And then I paused with that. Like, what is that telling me? Like, again, as soon as I start to feel that guilt and heaviness, I know it's like now become my litmus test of like, oh, I'm entering into the realm that I'm very familiar with, which is Tasnia, the doer, who's sending the email, rather than I'm being made to send this email as a dua. And so now with this knowledge of angels, it's like, alhamdulillah, that I'm not the one who is doing or who is responsible for doing. And I'm not saying in no means that, we don't care and we just, look the other eye when people are suffering. That's not what I'm saying. But it's like, it gives me the permission to pause and take it slow, that alhamdulillah, that Allah is employing millions and millions of angels. So even in this moment where right now other things require my attention and I'm unable to, for example, email, alhamdulillah that Allah is sending his angels and he's inspiring through the angels other people to do it, like it's him who is doing it. So to me, that sort of really takes the pressure off of me, really, tempers my guilt that I think more or less we're all sort of feeling and struggling with, of being here in the United States comfortable while our brothers and sisters aren't, yet everything is happening with his perfect decree. And I think, yes, when we log in, almost like log in from a place of connectedness to him and his angels, it comes with this flow, it comes with this ease. And as soon as like I log out, that's when I start to feel that heaviness. So yes, today I didn't get to the emails, but inshallah, if Allah permits my breath to keep coming to me by tomorrow, inshallah, bismillah, I'll do it in his name when things are more in alignment. So I think it's just so important to have that sort of understanding of angels in our life here and now, because we're not alone, and we're not the doers. He is employing beyond what we can imagine, angels upon angels to do his doing. I don't know. I feel definitely more at ease, more feeling like I don't have to control anything. It's under control. So I can let go. I can take it slow. All I need to do is trust and log in his name. Bismillah.
Like that. I think it's also reminding us to renew our intentions, and there's always time to do it anytime you remember. So, and from past retreats with Dr. Yamina too, she has kind of talked about this ability to, take any moment you remember, you can basically take that moment to slow yourself down and ground yourself in this reflection. And that'll always be there for us if we want to do it. So I think that also gives me hope when I'm thinking about this subject, and I find myself in usually forgetful moments. The more I stop and kind of try to go back into that reflective state, the more normal it'll become for me. Okay, so we did have some new people come in. Yes, Doctor, so you can just go after me. I just want to tell people that Dr. Yamina is not joining us this week, so we've just been doing a review of what we talked about last week and going over some of the homework reflections. So unless you joined a little later, just to catch you guys up. Go ahead, Ms. Rabla.
I just wanted to add this as a side note, since the topic Tesnia referred to our hearts and minds are filled with what's happening, particularly in Gaza. And so when I first read this, Ata Amullah, it immediately connected with that for me, because I read it in the past tense as well. God's judgment has come, or God's command has come, and don't hasten it, don't be impatient. And he subhanahu, like he's free from all fault, because what has been happening with me is looking at this, like, when is this going to end? When it should surely end now, it should end tomorrow, and it's prolonging, and a part is it where you're saying, when is God's amr coming? And the verse immediately felt like it already came, it has come. There's a sense of perfection in the tense, perfect tense here, Ata Amrullah. And Subhanahu is where I feel like I want to, focus on as the side reflection, that he's free from any fault and any error or any injustice. And وَتَعَالَى عَمَّا يُشْرِكُونَ, and shirk, this notion that certain people other than God are calling the shots, certain people other than God are able to get away with controlling people's lives, controlling their lifespan. All of that is, God is far above that. So, in the halakas, there has been an emphasis on looking at two sides of events. And I don't want to open a new subject here, but just wanted to share that that is connected with angels as well, because, and as Imam Nursi mentions in other texts, as well as, Yamina, Dr. Yamina has expanded on that, that things have two sides. One side is the side that look at people's choices, and it can be extremely ugly and unjust and just, terrible. But then things also have another side, that looks to destiny, to divine judgment, divine will and power. And Malakut is the term Imam Nursi uses for that. I believe he's not the only one who refers to that as Malakut. But so that the inner side of things, the reality of things, is always pure and perfect and just. And that sense, Ata Amrullah, God's judgment, God's Amr, has already come. And of course, there's something that speaks to that worry in us, that worry, that concern, that frustration that something is amiss, something should not be happening. That also has a place. It's not to deny that part. That also has a sign. But this notion that in the Malakut side of it, the spiritual, the angelic side of it, things are actually pure and being taken care of. Something that we can note.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Isra. I appreciated that a lot. I feel that currently it's been very helpful for me to look back at like different times in history when other like major devastating events were happening, and trying to look for the Malakuti side of it, and trying to see how, something happened as a result of some major tragic event that was thereafter very good for humanity, or some beauty or some wisdom that came from it. And it's often hard to do because you have to really look for it sometimes, but it's often when you do reach a point where you can see the beauty and wisdom with and past the adversity, then it is very, very humbling. And one thing that always helps me is to think about how we often think like we've arrived to the point where the story is already over, and but really the story has been written, and the ending is a good ending. It's just that we keep on forgetting that the story is not over yet. And that's the part where I feel that there must be something about this term of impatience that is something we all need to work with. it's something, it seems like it's an emotional and a psyche and a egoistic block that we must have that doesn't allow us to settle into our being of Abd, of being God's devotees. And it was reminding me of like simple interactions that I have serving dinner or to my children, where the dinner is prepared already. But it may be that this very moment is not the right time to serve dinner. It's just not the right time for you, my children, who I love, to eat the dinner. It will be after you have washed your hands and after you have settled down and after you're not wiggling or yelping, and you can appreciate it because you have sort of gotten all of that other stuff in your system out. And then you can truly receive these blessings that where you're going to have, that I've already made for you. And it just, that reminded me of the way we are with our Creator, how we can really settle down much more to receive the blessings that He's already prepared. And we can know that He's already prepared these blessings as a way to help calm whatever that is that's part of our ego, that's wants to deny that it's already been made for us. The beautiful ending to the story, or the beautiful blessings that await, the justice that we're waiting for, everything that we need essentially is already been made for us.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Inaba. I want to just pause with that. I think it's really important, and alhamdulillah, for us really taking the time to share our homework and reflections on these verses during such a trialing time. Thank you, Isra, for sharing what you shared. It was beautiful, beautiful connections, and thank you, Inaba. The one verse that came to me this week that's connected to angels, that speaks to what you guys shared. Maybe if you can open up a tab, Nurbanu. It's 8, Surah 8, verses 9 and 10. So it says, let me open it again and make it bigger. We can just read the English for ease. Remember when you were asking help of your Lord, and He answered you, "Indeed, I will reinforce you with 1,000 from the angels, following one another." And this was the part, 10 was the one that got to me. And God made it. وَمَا جَعَلَهُ اللَّهُ إِلَّا بُشْرَى. God made it not for anything else that He sent these, إِلَّا, except as a glad tiding, وَلِتَطْمَئِنَّ بِهِ قُلُوبُكُمْ. And so that He can just make your hearts feel. And this is like Dr. Yamina had a whole retreat on tamatnina, right? Reassured, to bring that reassurance to your heart, like that Inaba was saying. So there's a connection now that we're seeing between, and then here, let's go to the next part of the verse. وَمَا النَّصْرُ إِلَّا مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ. And victory or help is not from anyone except God. Now remember, Ata Amrullah, like Isra said, the command of God has already come. It's just from His perspective, it already happened, right? The infinite one is beyond space and time, and the infinite one is the one speaking. But from our perspective, we're seeing one slide at a time, one frame at a time, one moment at a time, one day at a time. So it's so hard, like Inab was saying, to feel that reassurance that the end of the story is indeed wise. And look at the way he ends this verse. Inna Allah Azizun Hakim. Indeed, for sure. Emphasis. God is the mightiest, Aziz, exalted in might, and Hakim, all wise. And if you could just open up one more tab. Sorry, this was also the same emphasis. These verses were 3:125 and 3:126. Alhamdulillah for all these beautiful connections. Because the connections now are just extremely profound, mashallah. Bala, in tasbiru wa tattaqu. If you can just remain patient, and we know sabr is more than patience. Patience is a very simple translation, but it's Ziva has the best translation for it. Enduring, perseverant, remaining on track, dedicated. وَتَتَّقُوا. If you can remain patient and conscious of God as they come upon you in rage, attacking in rage, your Lord will reinforce you with 5,000 angels having marks of distinction. وَمَا جَعَلَهُ اللَّهُ, the next ayah, and God didn't do this except إِلَّا, again, the same exact wordings, بُشْرَى لَكُمْ, glad tidings for you, وَلِتَطْمَئِنَّ قُلُوبُكُمْ بِهِ, and that He might make your heart feel tama'nina, reassured, at ease, bihi, with it. With what? With sending down angels. And then look at the same waman nasr, right? We're so impatient. We're so impatient. He's like telling us in 125, if you could just be patient, and if you could just try to be conscious of me, I will show you yatukum, like you will see, they will be upon you. I mean, they're already everywhere, but if you can have this, then you'll be able to access it. 5,000 angels. And we know that 5,000, 10,000, 1,000, it's just a number to say plenty, like innumerable amount. 126 ends with وَمَا النَّصْرُ إِلَّا مِنْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ. And victory or help is not from anyone except God, right? So it goes back to what Tesnia is saying, like, I have to do this, because if I don't do this, then I'm not really helping the cause, and I have to. Yes. And is your heart in a state of chaos, or is it your heart in a state of prayer and reassurance as you do that? Are you thinking that you're the one doing, or are you just praying, asking, while feeling reassured, that his victory is bound to come? وَمَا النَّصْرُ إِلَّا مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ الْعَزِيزِ الْحَكِيمِ. Again, the two names that are so closely tied to this is the one that is exalted in might, that I have to see, and the all-wise. So I just wanted to add those two in our mix. I know we're at time, but it's been such a lovely Quran session. I would love to hear anybody else's reflections. I just wanted to say the concluding comment is that the Quran says again and again and again, فَسَبِّحْ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّكَ. So be in a state of glorifying God, night and day, night and day. Be in a state, like all the time. Night and day means like keep your day focused on glorifying God and praising God. And now through this study, we're learning that it's only angels that are doing that work. And when you pause with anything, you will be able to hear this communication of angels which then puts you in a state of sabbih bihamd. So it means for me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm coming to the conclusion that I can only arrive at being in a state of praising God and glorifying God through hearing the angels speak, through witnessing them around me and within the things, through pausing and questioning the things, like Dr. Yamina was saying in the first couple of lectures so far. I'm going to pause right there. We said a lot. I said a lot. And opening up to any final reflections, sharings.
So, what comes to me is the pausing and the slowing down, and I think the homework that you had, or pausing with the boiling water, can be pausing at the beautiful scene, can be pausing at the mushy brain, can be pausing at the finger that touches the record and unmute button. And in that pause, then it would, like, the realization that there are angels there, we open up. I think right now for me it's a mental thing. I'm still trying to see it. And I remember a conversation with Maha where she was telling me she spoke to someone that she has not met since school days, and she met that person after, like, recently, and she was able to not only remember the person but remember which school she went to and remember the names of people that were coming in, and she was saying, I do not know how were the words flowing out of my mouth because I couldn't really remember. How did I remember? And a lot of us who have learned another language when they were, like, younger, and find themselves in a country and the language comes out, they look back at themselves and say, I don't even know how did these words come to me. And I guess if we keep, like, there is a language, there is a communication, there is something inside us that knows these angels, that we're created to recognize them and know them. And if we pause and are open up enough, then we would understand the communication, the way they're communicating. But in order to do that, we have to pause and slow down. And when we do that, we will start hearing that communication, that language, that thing that's inside us that knows, just like Maha knew this person and was able to do that, just like people who know a language. There is another language, a communication that's happening between, that God has ordained angels for everything to communicate with us. And only if we slow down, it will click with us. And it might be you, Sarah, or Dr. Yamina, or and Isra. Isra was visiting recently. We sat down and we looked at the forest behind my house, and we were thinking about that. And I shared this with you, Isra, and you said, I don't know, there is a setting in which the human being then not only understands the communication, but becomes the conductor. Like, everything is in tasbih and everything is praising, and you realize it, and you not only become the one who's understanding it, but the one who takes it all in. And just like Dawood, where the mountains were making tasbih and he was like the conductor, you become the conductor. And that is like a very, very high stage of not only being with angels, but actually recognizing all the angels at once. And I just found that very, very like a very, very safe place to be. Like to feel that you don't only understand what the angels, but you can ask angels and see them. You can ask God and see Him employing these angels. You can see the angels employed to do what God has ordained because you have asked for it. And that feels very, very empowering and very, very safe. Thank you.
To me, that sounds like a person who is carrying an extremely beautiful opinion of God. Like that they are seeing these holy qualities coming in every direction. They are attributing them to God commanding his angels. They are like, this person would, like you said, have this very high degree of Isan to become like a conductor in that way, beautifying everything that they see about their creator. Whatever they see, looking for whatever is wise, whatever is beautiful in it. And I just want to add that I think that the path for that is sabr, but expanding on the meaning of that, like we said, it's more than just patience. It's like this embodied wisdom, and that's the way that it sabr actually translates into Spanish, and the way that it came from Arabic into Spanish. It came as like this word that indicates that you have a wisdom that you embody, that gives you fortitude, and it also gives you this like constant tendency to see the good in things. And that's a beautiful opinion of God, that's interacting with your entire world as if it's a wonderfully beautiful God who's sending it to you. And so that just fills you with joy and you fall in love with that creator. And so I just wanted to say that that's what you inspired me to remember, Alia. Thanks.
Oh, that was really nice, guys. It made me think of a few things. The idea of trying to be in a state of glorification and praise and gratitude. It reminded me of like, if you've ever seen, like live music when there's a band, the musicians, start, and then if they try to do some like new piece or something, the singer will say, okay, like, cue me in or something, like start the beat so that I can get my bearings and then I can start singing along with the beat. So it made me feel like there's this chorus that's always there in like the undercurrent of all creation all the time. And they're just waiting for us to tune in to the beat and start singing along with them, basically. And I think that's really pretty. And also the last comment about being a conductor also reminded me of exactly join the choir, and now imagine, you're like the soloist or something, right? So like the way human beings are given this responsibility to be a Khalifa, or vicegerent, caliph, or whatever else, where there's this responsibility. And Imam Nursi talks about in a different place, which I really like, about how in Fatiha, when we are reading it in our salat every day, the reason we use the we verbs, like we turn to you, we ask you for help, we praise you, when we're doing this like first person plural, he's saying that it's basically an acknowledgement of us seeing that constant glorification. So there's that responsibility of me seeing that constant glorification, that it's going on the angelic realm, the constant praise. I am supposed to tune into it, and then I'm supposed to present it to my creator, like acknowledge that I saw it and I am joining in. So I think that's just like a really nice way to connect in the way that we've been thinking about angels. That's just really sweet. And the other thing I wrote down was, Sarah, you said, when you're helping in your heart, are you the one? Do you think you're the one helping, or are you being like a channel, to that help? And that's going to kind of make the difference between how you're handling anything. And I think that's very reassuring, since we've been talking about reassurance of the heart. If the way I'm acting is not like an ego project, but I'm just trying to be a mirror or a channel for what I understand to be justice, or what I understand to be mercy or compassion, then I don't feel overwhelmed with what I see around me. I feel that, I can do the best I can through what God presents through me into the world. So that's just something that came, especially with the current events discussion and how we're all feeling, and sometimes how it can be really overwhelming. We are at 9:10, so I want to give anyone time to say any last reflections, and then inshallah we can wrap up here. And then next week we will start the fourth fundamental point with hopefully Dr. Yamina joining us. And I see some things happening in the chat. As per Dr. Isra's request, please save your questions and comments from the chat and add them to our YouTube channel. We have a lot of people who watch it after we post it on YouTube, so they can also benefit from your beautiful reflections, inshallah. And then we will send the verses that we studied this week, so we can keep reflecting on them over the next week, inshallah. And if you have anything else to say, go ahead, please.
Just a reminder that November 30th is the deadline for registering for the retreat. In its saver rate after November 30th, the registration price will go up. And so if you're considering to join us for the December retreat, please check out the website. And the other thing is, we haven't been sharing in our chat or in the emails that we weekly email newsletter, any particular guidelines about how to go about calling your representatives and so on. But we hope that inshallah you're doing what you can and you're praying as well.
Okay, perfect. Inshallah, subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim, wa akhiru da'wahum anil hamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Al-Fatiha ala Rasulina salawat. Thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you all next week, inshallah.
Jazakumullah khair, Nurbanu and Sarah.